He should not have said it out loud, but the lawyer leaned forward, eyes sharp, voice dripping with doubt, and asked the question anyway. "So let me get this straight, Mr. Beck. You married Emma Torres 4 days before this custody hearing after not seeing her for 5 years, and you expect this court to believe that marriage is real." Every head in the courtroom turned toward me. Emma sat beside me, her hands folded tight in her lap, knuckles white. I could feel the tension in her body without even looking. Her whole world, her son, everything she loved was hanging on what I said next. The truth was simple, but it sounded insane. Because 4 nights ago, Emma Torres had knocked on my door at midnight, soaked from the rain, holding a marriage license in shaking hands. And the first thing she said to me was this: "Sign here, or they're going to take my son." That was the moment my quiet life ended. And somehow, it was also the moment my real life began. But the judge didn't know any of that yet. The lawyer was still staring at me, waiting. The whole room was waiting, and the question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Was our marriage real? Or was it just a lie to save a child? 4 nights earlier, I was standing in my living room eating a half-made sandwich when someone started pounding on my door like the building was on fire. Hard, urgent, the kind of knock that makes your stomach drop before you even know why. It was midnight. Nobody ever came to my apartment this late. My life had become very quiet after the divorce. 2 years earlier, my ex-wife Claire had walked out of our marriage with a lawyer and a list of things she said were wrong with me. Too distant, too quiet, too boring. After that, I stopped trying. I worked. I ran every morning. I watched dumb shows at night. That was it. Simple life, safe life. So when the knocking came again, louder this time, I walked to the door already feeling uneasy. When I opened it, I froze. Emma, my ex-wife's younger sister. She stood in the hallway dripping rainwater onto the carpet. Her hair was stuck to her face. Her eyes were swollen and red like she had been crying for hours, and in her hands she was holding a thick envelope. For a few seconds neither of us said anything. The last time I had seen Emma was 5 years ago, at my divorce hearing. Back then she was a loud, messy art student who always had paint on her jeans and opinions about everything. Now she looked exhausted, older, like life had hit her harder than anyone expected. "Ryan," she said quietly. Her voice cracked halfway through my name. "I need your help." My brain struggled to catch up. "Emma." She looked over her shoulder down the empty hallway like someone might be following her. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside automatically. She walked past me into my apartment, leaving little wet footprints across the floor. I closed the door slowly. My heart was beating faster now. Something was very wrong. Emma sat on my couch without asking. Her hands were shaking so badly the envelope crinkled in her grip. Not just cold shaking, fear, real fear. I took the chair across from her. "Emma, what's going on?" Her eyes lifted to mine. "Does Claire know you're here?" She shook her head immediately. "No, and she can't." That confused me even more. "No one can know," she said. "Not yet." Then she pulled papers out of the envelope and slid them across the coffee table toward me. "Look." I picked up the top page and my stomach dropped. Marriage license. The form was mostly blank, except for one name already filled in. Emma Torres. At the bottom of the page there was an empty line, signature of husband. I looked up slowly. "What is this?" Emma leaned forward. Her eyes were locked onto mine now. No hesitation, no shame, just desperation. "Sign it." For a second I thought I had heard her wrong. "Sign it," she repeated. "And I'll explain everything." My brain stalled. "You want me to marry you?" "Yes." The word came out steady this time, like she had practiced saying it over and over before coming here. "Emma," I said slowly, "are you out of your mind?" She leaned closer. "If I'm not married by Saturday, they're going to take my son." The room went silent. My confusion turned into something heavier. "You're what?" "My son." Her voice broke. "He's 3 years old." I blinked. "You have a kid." She nodded. "Owen." The name sat in the room between us. Emma swallowed hard. "His father is trying to take him away from me." Now my brain was spinning. Start from the beginning, I said. She took a long, shaky breath. You remember Jordan? I shook my head. No. He's Owen's father. What? Her hands tightened together. We were together about a year. When I got pregnant, he said he was happy, said we'd figure things out. She laughed bitterly. Owen was 6 months old when he disappeared. Just left, no call, no money, nothing. She looked down at the marriage license in my hands. I raised Owen alone for almost 3 years. Her voice hardened. Then 3 months ago Jordan came back. Suddenly, he wants to be a father. I felt anger start creeping into my chest, and the court believed him. They gave him supervised visits, she said, every other weekend. And now he wants full custody. My jaw tightened. How? He hired a lawyer, she whispered, a really good one. Her eyes filled with tears again. They say I'm unstable. What? They say I work weird hours. They say my apartment is too small. They say Owen needs a stable home with 2 parents. Her voice cracked. Jordan got married last year. His wife is a surgeon. Big house, big money. They look perfect on paper. Silence filled the room. Then Emma pushed the marriage license closer to me. My lawyer said it would help my case if I was married. I rubbed my forehead. You're serious? Yes. The hearing is Tuesday. If I walk into that courtroom single, I lose. I stared at the paper again. This was insane. Absolutely insane. You need a husband by Saturday. Yes. And you chose me. Emma hesitated. Then she looked me straight in the eyes. Because you're the only person I trust. That makes 0 sense. What? She shook her head. No, it does. You're not connected to my family anymore. You're not one of my friends Jordan's lawyer could dig into. And she paused. You're the only man I know who wouldn't take advantage of this. The room went quiet again. I sat there staring at the marriage license. Every logical part of my brain screamed the same thing. This is a terrible idea. I barely knew Emma. We hadn't spoken in 5 years. And she was asking me to legally marry her overnight to help her win a custody fight. It sounded insane. But then something else crept into my mind. A 3-year-old boy. A kid who had done nothing wrong. A kid whose father walked away when things got hard. And now wanted him back when life was convenient again. Emma's voice softened. Ryan, please. I don't know what else to do. I looked up at her. She wasn't manipulating me. She wasn't pretending. She was terrified. And suddenly I realized something. Emma hadn't come here expecting me to say yes. She came here because she had no one else left to ask. I leaned back slowly. If I do this. Emma straightened instantly. There have to be rules. Okay. No lies. If I'm going into court for you, I need the full truth. You'll have it. And this marriage. I paused. If it ever becomes real, it's because we both want it. Not because of some paper we signed. Emma nodded immediately. I wouldn't ask for anything more. The pen was sitting on the coffee table, waiting. I picked it up. My hand hovered over the paper. This could ruin my life. This could destroy everything. But something inside me whispered something louder than fear. If you say no, you'll regret it forever, so I signed. And neither of us had any idea that one signature was about to change 3 lives. Thursday morning came too fast. I had barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, the same thought kept circling in my head. You married your ex-wife's sister. Not dated, not talked, married. And somehow it had happened between midnight and sunrise like the world's strangest impulse decision. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. 6:02 a.m. A message from Emma. Courthouse opens at 8. Meet me outside. Please don't change your mind. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back. I got dressed, grabbed the one decent jacket I owned, and stepped into the cold Seattle morning. The sky was gray. Drizzle hung in the air like the city hadn't decided whether it wanted to rain or not. Emma was already standing outside the courthouse when I arrived. She wore jeans and a simple blue sweater. Her hair was tied back, but I could still see how nervous she was. Her hands kept twisting together. For a second, we just stood there looking at each other. Two people who had made a decision so crazy it almost didn't feel real yet. "You came," she said quietly. "I signed the paper," I replied. "I'm not backing out now." Her shoulders dropped slightly with relief. "Thank you." We didn't talk much after that. What do you even say in a situation like this? The courthouse doors opened at 8 sharp. Inside, everything smelled like old paper and disinfectant. We went straight to the clerk's office. A tired-looking woman sat behind the counter, barely glancing up when we walked in. "Marriage license?" she asked. Emma nodded and slid the papers across the desk. The woman pushed a form toward us. "Fill this out." Name, birthday, address, previous marriages. I checked the box for yes. Emma checked no. For a moment my pen stopped. 2 years ago I had stood in another courthouse signing divorce papers. Now here I was again signing marriage paperwork. Life had a strange sense of humor. 25 minutes later we were done. We paid $70. The clerk stamped the document without even looking at us. "Congratulations," she said flatly. And just like that, we were married. No vows, no rings, no music, just a rubber stamp and a bored clerk. Emma and I stepped back outside into the gray morning. Cars rushed past on the wet street. The world looked exactly the same, but somehow everything had changed. Emma stopped on the sidewalk. "Ryan." "Yeah. Thank you." Her voice was quiet. "I know this isn't normal." I laughed softly. "Emma, nothing about this is normal." She gave a small, nervous smile. "But I signed the paper," I continued, "so I'm in this all the way." She blinked at me like she hadn't expected that. Most people would be running away right now. "I'm not most people." For the first time since she showed up at my door, Emma actually smiled. A small one, but real. "Come meet Owen," she said. The drive to her apartment was quiet. My brain still hadn't caught up with reality. You're someone's husband again, you're about to meet someone's kid. And somehow both of those things had happened in less than 12 hours. Emma lived in an older building across town, 3 floors, narrow stairs. The hallway smelled faintly like paint and laundry detergent. Her apartment door opened into a small living room, maybe 600 square feet total, but it didn't feel empty. Paintings covered the walls. Not store art, real paintings, bright colors, wild brush strokes, Emma's work. Kids' drawings were taped to the refrigerator, toys were scattered across the floor, and by the door sat a tiny blue sneaker. "Owen with my aunt today," Emma said. She set her bag down. I told him I had important things to do. She glanced at me. "He'll be home this afternoon." Something tightened in my stomach. "You want me to meet him already?" "The judge might ask questions," she explained. "He needs to know who you are." That made sense, but I still felt nervous. I had never been good with kids. Emma made coffee while I sat at the tiny kitchen table. Then she brought out a folder full of papers. "My lawyer Michelle wants to meet us tomorrow," she said. "She'll prepare us for court. But first, we need our story." I nodded slowly. "Okay." Emma thought for a moment. "We ran into each other at a coffee shop 2 months ago. That gives us time to have dated." I scribbled notes on a napkin. "Why didn't you tell your family?" "Because of Claire." What? I laughed softly. "That part is actually believable." Emma smiled. "What about your family?" "I'll say we moved fast because it felt right." For the next hour we built our fake history. Favorite foods, morning routines, little habits. Emma told me she loved the color yellow, hated mushrooms, drank Earl Grey tea, painted late at night when she couldn't sleep. Sometimes until 3 in the morning. I told her I ran every morning at 6, that I was allergic to shellfish, that my apartment had a great view of the city but felt empty most nights. It was strange. We were inventing a relationship, but at the same time, we were learning real things about each other. Around 3 in the afternoon, Emma's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. "That's my aunt." My stomach tightened. She's bringing Owen home. 5 minutes later, someone knocked on the door. Emma opened it. An older woman with gray hair stood there smiling, but the moment she saw me, her eyes widened. "This is Ryan," Emma said. Her aunt blinked. "Oh." Clearly she knew exactly who I was. "Nice to meet you," I said awkwardly. She shook my hand, then stepped aside, and a tiny boy peeked out from behind her legs. Messy brown hair, big curious eyes, a dinosaur shirt. Owen. He looked at me like I had just appeared from another planet, which honestly wasn't far from the truth. Emma knelt down beside him. "Owen, this is Ryan. He's going to be staying with us for a while." "Okay." Owen didn't answer. He just stared at me. After Emma's aunt left, the apartment felt strangely quiet. The three of us stood there for a moment. Then Owen walked over to a toy box in the corner. He started pulling out wooden blocks. I looked at Emma. She noticed my panic immediately. "Owen loves building things," she said gently. "Maybe you could help him." I walked over slowly and sat on the floor beside him. Owen glanced at me again. "I'm making a tower," he said. His voice was soft. "That's cool," I replied. "Can I help?" He thought about it seriously, then handed me a red block. "This goes on the bottom." "Okay." I placed it carefully. He handed me another, then another. We built quietly for a few minutes. Then Owen asked something that made my chest tighten. "Are you my mom's friend?" I glanced at Emma. She was watching from the kitchen. "Yeah," I said. "I'm your mom's friend." What? Owen nodded like that made perfect sense. "Do you like dinosaurs?" "I do." His face lit up. "T-Rex is my favorite because he has big teeth." "T-Rex is pretty awesome." The tower grew taller. Owen started smiling, for the first time since I walked in the door. Later that evening, Emma called us to dinner. Owen grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the table, his small fingers wrapped around mine, and something strange happened in my chest, something warm, protective, like a door inside me had quietly opened. After dinner, Emma gave Owen a bath. I could hear him laughing in the bathroom, water splashing everywhere. Emma telling him to stop flooding the apartment. When she brought him out in pajamas, Owen ran straight to me. "Will you read me a story?" I blinked, "Sure." What? Emma handed me a children's book about a bear who couldn't sleep. Owen climbed onto the couch beside me. Halfway through the story, his head leaned against my arm. By the last page, his eyes were barely open. Emma carried him to bed. When she came back, she sat beside me quietly. "He likes you," she said. "That's good, right?" "It's really good." She looked down at her hands. "Owen doesn't trust people easily." Rain began tapping softly against the windows. The apartment felt calm, peaceful. Emma looked up at me again. "Ryan." "Yeah." "There's something else I need to tell you." I turned toward her. "What?" She hesitated. "I didn't come to you just because you were disconnected from my family." I frowned. "Then why?" Emma met my eyes. "Because I remember who you were." What? I didn't understand. She continued quietly. "Back when you were married to Claire, there was a time I dropped out of college." "I remember," I said slowly. "Everyone was angry at me," she said. "My parents. My sister. They all told me I was wasting my life." She looked at me carefully. "But you didn't. You just asked if I was okay." I barely remembered that moment, but Emma clearly did. "You listened," she said, "like I actually mattered." Her voice softened. I never forgot that. Silence filled the room. Then she said the words that changed everything. "So when I needed someone I could trust with my son's life, I knew it had to be you." And suddenly I realized something. This crazy decision hadn't started last night for Emma. It had started 5 years ago. Tuesday morning arrived faster than I was ready for. I woke up in Emma's spare bedroom staring at the ceiling, my stomach tied in knots. Today was the custody hearing. Today was the day everything could fall apart. For Emma, for Owen, for whatever strange life the three of us had started building in the past few days. I sat up slowly and rubbed my face. 4 days ago, I had been a single guy living in a quiet apartment with no responsibilities beyond my job. Now I was someone's husband. And possibly someone's father figure. That thought both terrified me and filled me with something I hadn't felt in years: purpose. I put on the only suit I owned. Dark blue, slightly wrinkled from being shoved into a bag, but it would have to do. When I walked into the kitchen, Emma was already there. She stood at the counter trying to pour coffee into 2 mugs. Her hands were shaking so badly the coffee sloshed over the sides. "Hey," I said gently. She looked up. Her eyes were red from another night without sleep. "Morning." I stepped forward and took the coffee pot from her. "Let me do that." She didn't argue. She just sat down at the small kitchen table and stared at nothing while I filled the cups. The apartment was quiet. Owen was still asleep in his room. Emma's aunt would pick him up later and take him for the day. No 3-year-old should have to sit in a courtroom while adults argued about his future. I slid a mug in front of Emma. She wrapped both hands around it but didn't drink. "What if I mess up?" she whispered. I sat across from her. "You whoa. What if I say the wrong thing? What if they decide Jordan is better?" Her voice cracked. "What if they take Owen?" I leaned forward. "Emma." She looked at me. "You've been there every single day of that kid's life," I said. "You fed him, read to him, stayed up when he was sick, showed up when things were hard. Jordan disappeared. You didn't. That matters." Her eyes filled with tears. "Jordan has money, Ryan. He has a big house. His wife is a surgeon. What do I have?" I didn't hesitate. "You have 3 years of loving your son. That counts more than anything." Emma looked down at the table, then quietly asked the question I think had been sitting in her mind since the moment she knocked on my door. "Why are you doing this?" "Really?" I thought about it. The real answer surprised even me. "Because when you asked me to sign that paper, you weren't asking for a favor. You were asking if I was the kind of person who shows up. And I decided I wanted to be that person." Emma stared at me for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. At 9 o'clock we walked into the courthouse together. The building felt colder than usual. Hard floors, gray walls, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Emma's lawyer, Michelle, met us outside the courtroom. She looked calm, professional, the exact opposite of how Emma felt. "Remember what we practiced," Michelle said. "Answer only what they ask. Stay calm. And don't volunteer extra information." Emma nodded nervously. My heart pounded as we walked through the courtroom doors. Jordan was already there. He sat on the opposite side of the room beside his lawyer. Tall, sharp suit, expensive watch. The kind of guy who looked like he had never lost an argument in his life. Next to him sat his wife, blonde, perfect hair, a diamond ring that probably cost more than my car. She looked at Emma with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Jordan turned when he heard us enter. His gaze landed on me. "So this is the husband," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. The mockery in his voice was obvious. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled Emma's chair out for her. She sat down. Then I sat beside her. The judge entered a moment later, an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. She looked tired, like she had seen too many broken families in this room. "Let's begin." Jordan's lawyer stood first and immediately started tearing Emma apart. He talked about her job teaching art classes at night, how Owen stayed with babysitters during those hours, how her apartment only had 1 bedroom, how Owen slept on a small couch bed, how she had been late picking Owen up from preschool 4 times in 6 months. Every sentence made it sound like Emma was barely holding her life together. I felt Emma's hand trembling beside me. Then the lawyer turned toward me. "And now we have Mr. Ryan Beck." He adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Torres married Mr. Beck 4 days ago. Yet according to our investigation..." His eyes flicked toward us. "These 2 individuals had no contact for 5 years prior to that marriage." He paused for effect. "No dating. No relationship. One day they were strangers. The next day they were married." He looked at the judge. Isn't that interesting timing? My pulse hammered in my ears. The judge turned toward me. Mr. Beck. Yes, Your Honor. When did you reconnect with Mrs. Torres? I cleared my throat. About 2 months ago. Where? A bookstore downtown. And you began dating immediately? Not exactly. We got coffee that day. Talked for a long time. After that we kept meeting. And 2 months later you decided to marry. Yes. The lawyer smiled slightly. Mr. Beck, do you expect this court to believe that this sudden marriage has nothing to do with today's custody hearing? Every eye in the room turned toward me again. I looked at Emma. She was staring at me, her entire future written in her eyes. I took a breath. Your Honor, my previous marriage ended badly. I spent 2 years convinced I would never trust anyone again. But when Emma and I reconnected, I paused. She was honest. About her struggles, about her life. And when I met Owens, my voice softened. I saw how hard she worked to give him a good life. Jordan's lawyer jumped in. So you married her out of admiration? I married her because I wanted to. Or because she needed a husband before this hearing? Anger flared inside my chest. I married her because I believe in her. Because that kid deserves people in his life who show up. The lawyer smirked. You've known Owen less than a week. Jordan barely knows him either, I shot back. He walked away when Owen was 6 months old. I might be new in Owen's life, but at least I chose to be here. Mr. Beck, the judge said firmly, answer only the questions asked. I nodded, understood. Michelle stood up next. She presented our side carefully. Emma's real work schedule, photos of her apartment, letters from Owen's preschool teacher describing how happy he was. Then Emma took the stand. Her voice shook at first, but as she talked about Owen, something changed. She described their mornings, breakfast together, walking to preschool, reading bedtime stories, how Owen loved dinosaurs, how he slept with a stuffed elephant every night. The room grew quiet. Even Jordan stopped smiling. Then came the cross-examination. Miss Torres, Jordan's lawyer said smoothly. You dropped out of college, correct? Yes. You have no degree. I'm an artist. But financially you struggle. I manage. Your son does not even have his own bedroom. Emma's jaw tightened. He has everything he needs. The lawyer stepped closer. Mr. Torres can offer a large home, private schools, financial stability. He paused. Can you honestly say your son wouldn't be better off living with his father? Emma's eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed steady. Owen doesn't need a perfect house. He needs the person who has been there since the beginning. He needs someone who knows he's afraid of the dark. Someone who knows dinosaurs are his favorite thing in the world. Someone who stayed. Her voice broke. Jordan left. I didn't. The courtroom fell silent. The judge wrote something in her notes, then looked up. I will review the evidence and testimony. You will receive my decision by the end of the week. And just like that, it was over. Outside in the hallway, Emma's legs gave out. She sank onto a bench, her whole body shaking. I sat beside her, not knowing what to say. Michelle crouched in front of us. You both did well. Now we wait. Waiting turned out to be the hardest part, because now everything depended on one decision, and none of us could control it. Waiting is a strange kind of torture. Nothing is happening, but inside your head everything is. That Thursday felt longer than the entire week before it. Emma barely slept. She barely ate. Most of the time she just paced around the apartment like someone waiting for bad news they already expected. Owen, of course, had no idea what was happening. To him it was just another normal week. He built towers with his blocks. He chased toy dinosaurs across the living room floor. He asked Emma why dinosaurs didn't wear shoes. And every time he laughed, Emma's eyes filled with tears, because she knew what was at stake. Friday afternoon came. Still no decision. Emma sat at the kitchen table staring at her phone like she could force it to ring. "Maybe that's bad," she whispered. "What if the judge already decided and it's just paperwork now?" I sat across from her. "Emma, what if she thinks Jordan's right?" She continued. "What if she thinks Owen deserves more than I can give him?" "What?" "Stop," I said gently. Emma rubbed her face. "I'm trying, I can't lose him." Owen suddenly ran into the kitchen holding a plastic dinosaur. "Mom, look." The dinosaur had one leg missing. Emma blinked away tears instantly and smiled. "What happened to him?" "Ryan fixed it." Owen climbed onto my lap proudly. "He used tape." Emma looked at us and laughed softly. "Very impressive repair work." Owen grinned, then he looked up at me seriously. "Ryan." "Yeah, buddy. You're staying here tonight again." I glanced at Emma. "Yeah." Owen nodded like that was exactly the answer he expected. "Good." Then he ran back to the living room with his dinosaur. Emma watched him go. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He's already getting used to you." I shrugged. "He's easy to like." "That's not what I meant." She looked at me carefully. "If the judge rules against me, Jordan could take him." The words hung heavy in the air. "And then you'll go back to your normal life." I leaned back in my chair. "You really think it's that simple?" "You didn't sign up for this life, Ryan." "I literally signed paperwork for it." Despite everything, she smiled a little, but the worry didn't leave her face. Saturday morning, the phone finally rang. Emma froze in the middle of the living room. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. "Hello." Her expression changed. Then she looked at me. "It's Michelle." Emma listened quietly for a moment, then whispered, "Okay." She hung up slowly. "What did she say?" I asked. Emma swallowed. "The judge wants to see us in her chambers in an hour." My stomach tightened. That meant one thing: the decision had been made. Emma's aunt came to pick up Owen again. He waved happily from the door. "Bye, Ryan. See you later, buddy." The drive to the courthouse felt even longer than the last one. Neither of us spoke. We just sat there listening to the sound of rain hitting the windshield. When we reached the building, Emma took a deep breath. "You ready?" "No," I said honestly, "but let's go." Jordan and his wife were already inside the judge's private office when we entered. Jordan looked confident, like someone who already knew he'd won. Emma's hand found mine, cold, shaking. The judge sat behind a large wooden desk. Her glasses rested low on her nose as she studied the file in front of her. "Please sit." We did. The room went quiet. Then the judge closed the folder. "I've reviewed all the evidence and testimony." Emma's grip tightened on my hand. "I have reached a decision." For a moment, nobody breathed. "Primary custody will remain with Emma Torres." Emma gasped. Her other hand flew to her mouth. I squeezed her hand as relief crashed through my chest, but the judge wasn't finished. "However," she continued, "Mr. Torres will receive supervised visitation every other weekend." Jordan's face turned red. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. The judge's eyes hardened instantly. "My decision is final. You may build a relationship with your son, Mr. Torres, but the court will not disrupt the stable home he already has." Jordan stood abruptly. His lawyer quickly pulled him back down. "This hearing is closed." And just like that, it was over. Outside the courthouse, Emma collapsed against me, her entire body shaking. She buried her face in my shoulder and sobbed, not sad tears, relief, joy, exhaustion. "We won," she whispered. "I can't believe it, we actually won." I wrapped my arms around her. For the first time all week, the weight pressing on my chest lifted. That night Owen fell asleep early. The apartment felt quieter than usual, peaceful. Emma and I sat on the couch in the dim light of the living room. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, Emma broke the silence. "You can go home now." I turned toward her. "What?" "What?" "You did what you promised. You helped me keep Owen." She looked down at her hands. The marriage served its purpose. The words landed harder than I expected. Is that all it was? I asked. Emma hesitated. I don't know what it is anymore. She finally looked at me. I know how it started. But now, her voice faded. I understood exactly what she meant, because I felt it too, somewhere between signing that paper and sitting in that courtroom. Something had changed. I'm not leaving, I said. Emma blinked. Why? Because when I'm here making breakfast with Owen, or helping him build block towers, or watching you paint in the corner. I shrugged. It feels like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Emma's eyes filled with tears again. I can't ask you to give up your life for us. You're not asking. I leaned closer. I'm choosing. Silence filled the room, then slowly. Emma leaned her head against my shoulder. I wrapped an arm around her. We didn't kiss. We didn't make promises. We just sat there. Two people who had started something fake. And somehow ended up somewhere real. Weeks passed. I went back to my apartment a few times to grab clothes and check my mail, but every time I left, I couldn't wait to come back. Back to Owen asking me to play dinosaurs. Back to Emma humming while she painted. Back to a place that somehow felt more like home than my own apartment ever had. And without realizing it, I stopped thinking about leaving. 6 weeks after the custody hearing, something happened that I didn't expect. Something small, but powerful enough to change everything. It was a Tuesday night. Emma was in the kitchen washing paint brushes from one of her classes. Music played softly from her phone while she worked. I was in the bathroom giving Owen his bath, which had somehow become our routine. He loved bath time, mostly because it gave him permission to turn the entire bathroom into a miniature ocean. Plastic boats crashed into each other. Water splashed everywhere. And Owen narrated every battle like it was the most important event in the world. This one is the pirate ship, he announced, and this one is the dinosaur ship. I leaned against the counter watching him. Dinosaur ships sound pretty dangerous. They are, he said seriously. Then he looked up at me. Ryan. Yeah, buddy. He splashed the water gently with one hand. Are you going to stay forever? The question caught me completely off guard. I blinked. What do you mean? Owen shrugged like it was the simplest thing in the world. Like, live here. He paused, because I like when you're here. My chest tightened. Kids have a way of asking the biggest questions without even realizing it. Would you like that? I asked. Owen nodded immediately. Because you make my mom smile. That was it, one sentence, but something inside me shifted in that moment. This little boy didn't care about legal papers or custody battles. He just wanted his mom to be happy. And somehow, I had become part of that happiness. I like being here too, I said quietly. Owen grinned. Then you should stay forever. Later that night, after Owen was asleep, I told Emma what he had said. She covered her mouth with one hand. Her eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. He's not wrong, she whispered. You do make me smile. I looked at her. You make me smile too. Emma stared at me for a long moment. Then she said something that made my heart stop. I think I'm falling for you. Her voice trembled, and that terrifies me. Why? Because this was supposed to be temporary, she said softly. This was supposed to be fake. She looked down at her hands, but it doesn't feel fake anymore. I moved a little closer to her on the couch. I stopped pretending it was fake about 3 weeks ago. Emma blinked. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to make sure. Sure about what? That it wasn't just the chaos of everything. That it was actually real. Emma slowly reached for my hand. And is it? I squeezed her fingers gently. Yeah. It's real. Our first kiss happened right there on the couch. Soft, careful, like both of us were afraid to rush something fragile. When we pulled apart, Emma laughed through her tears. What? We got married before we even kissed. I chuckled. Yeah, we did this completely backwards. Maybe that's why it worked. 3 months later, I officially moved out of my apartment. Most of my furniture didn't fit in Emma's small place, but somehow the important things did. My clothes, my books, my coffee maker. And slowly, my life, the apartment became crowded, messy, full of toys and paint supplies and shoes by the door, but it felt more like home than any place I had ever lived before. One morning I was making pancakes when Owen wandered into the kitchen. His hair stuck up in every direction. He rubbed his eyes sleepily. "Morning, buddy." "Morning." He climbed onto a chair at the table, then he looked at me. "Papa Ryan." The spatula froze in my hand. "What did you call me?" Owen suddenly looked nervous. "I can say something else if you want." I knelt beside him. "No." My voice caught slightly. "Papa Ryan is perfect." He smiled and wrapped his arms around my neck. When Emma walked into the kitchen and heard him say it again, she burst into tears. Happy tears had become a regular thing in our house. Life slowly settled into rhythms. I dropped Owen at preschool on my way to work. Emma picked him up in the afternoon. We had dinner together every night. Weekends meant parks, museums, or giant block towers that usually collapsed in spectacular fashion. Jordan kept his supervised visits. Every other Saturday we dropped Owen off at the visitation center. A social worker watched their interactions. Owen never complained. But he never looked excited either, he just accepted it. Emma worried constantly. What if Jordan tries something again? She asked one night. "He won't," I reassured her. The judge made her decision. But I understood the fear. When you almost lose everything, you never stop protecting it. Spring arrived. And with it came a new idea. Emma brought it up one evening after Owen had gone to bed. "I want to do something." "What?" "A real wedding." I blinked. "We already did that part." "Not really." She smiled. "I want the kind where people actually celebrate." "You mean telling our families?" "I'm tired of hiding," she said. "Yes, this started crazy. But what it became, that deserves to be celebrated." So we planned a small ceremony in her aunt's backyard. Nothing fancy, just close friends and family. Even Claire came. At first she barely looked at me, but when she saw how Emma looked at me, how Owen held my hand, something in her expression softened. Emma wore a simple yellow dress. Owen took his job as ring bearer very seriously. When it was time for vows, I didn't read from a card. 7 months ago, Emma showed up at my door asking for trust, and I gave it, not because it made sense, but because something inside me said she was worth the risk. So I told her exactly that. 7 months ago, you asked me to jump into your life without knowing where it would lead. And I said yes. Not because I knew what would happen, but because something told me you were worth it. I squeezed her hands. I was right. You were worth every uncertain moment, every difficult conversation, every step of learning how to build this life together. I smiled. I'm not standing here today because of a piece of paper. I'm here because every day since that night, I keep choosing you. Emma wiped her eyes before saying her vows. When I came to your door that night, I was drowning. I thought I needed someone to throw me a rope. She looked at me. You didn't throw a rope. You jumped into the water with me. And then you stayed long enough to build a life on the shore. She laughed softly. I choose you today. And every day after. We kissed while Owen cheered louder than anyone. That night after everyone left, Emma and I sat on the porch under the stars. The air smelled like spring flowers. Can I tell you something? She asked. Always. The night I knocked on your door, I was terrified you'd say no. I smiled. You had a speech ready. A whole one. But you didn't even let me finish. Why? She leaned against my shoulder. Why did you sign so fast? I thought about it, because when you said you'd lose everything, I saw how hard you were willing to fight for Owen. And I thought, That's someone worth believing in. Emma squeezed my hand. Best decision you ever made. I smiled, second best. What was the first? I pulled her closer, choosing to stay. And that's the thing about love. It doesn't always arrive the way you expect. Sometimes it shows up at midnight, holding legal papers, and asking you to trust it. But if you're brave enough to say yes, it might give you everything you never knew you needed. Because some promises don't begin at an altar. Some promises begin the moment you decide to stay.